Father's Day, 6:15 a.m. I overheard my daughter whisper, "He's old. He won't fight us." By Friday morning, I'd frozen 243,000 of her assets, and by Monday, I made her serve shrimp cocktails at the same yacht club she used to brag about owning. I'm Richard Hale, 67 years old, retired federal judge, spent 3 decades on the bench holding con artists accountable. Funny thing is, I never thought the next one I'd face would be my own daughter. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, especially family, drop your city in the comments and hit subscribe, because this story, it ends in public consequences, court documents, and a daughter who went from luxury to latex gloves. I wasn't always this calm. Back then, I still believed that if you gave enough, the people you loved would never cross you. Turns out, sometimes giving everything just teaches them how to take more. I wasn't born with much. My father was a machinist. My mother cleaned houses. What we lacked in wealth, we made up for in grit. By 21, I was putting myself through law school. By 30, I was arguing in federal courtrooms with a $200 Sears briefcase and a second-hand Buick. I skipped every vacation, missed birthdays, worked every holiday, but won my daughter's first Christmas. I thought that was the cost of building a life. Looking back now, I realize I wasn't just building a career. I was building safety. For them, especially for Madison, my only daughter. Bright, charismatic, sharp as a tack when it suited her. She was the kind of kid who could talk her way out of detention and into extra credit, all in the same conversation. She'd cry to her teachers and laugh about it on the ride home. I thought it was charm. Turns out, it was training. By middle school, she was already learning that rules only applied to people without power. And I gave her too much of it. College. She got her pick. U.S. full tuition, courtesy of Dad. When she totaled her first car, I wired the money for another one before she even told me the truth. Meanwhile, my son Daniel, quiet, methodical, graduated debt-free because he worked 2 jobs and refused help. He didn't ask, so he didn't get, and I didn't notice how unfair that was until much later. There's this memory that keeps circling back now. Thanksgiving, 2018. I'd made reservations at a beautiful restaurant overlooking the Pacific. I was hoping for a rare dinner where everyone would just show up and be decent. Daniel arrived early with a bottle of my favorite Pinot Noir. Madison showed up 40 minutes late, mid-fight with her husband, demanding we switch the table because the lighting was too harsh for photos. Halfway through dinner, she called the waiter incompetent for forgetting her lemon wedge. Daniel tipped him extra on the way out. I pretended not to notice. That was the night I started writing things down. Not just legal notes, personal ones, receipts, missed calls, who said what, when, and why it stung. It wasn't revenge. Not then. It was survival. Because something in my gut told me I'd need those records one day. And I did. You see, when my ex-wife and I divorced 15 years ago, we split everything down the middle. But the emotional custody Madison stayed with her mother. That woman never met a boundary she couldn't bulldoze. To her, no just meant negotiate louder. And Madison learned the game. They called it leaning on Dad. I called it generosity. They called it borrowing. I called it trust. They called it helping the family. I called it love. But here's the thing about trust. It doesn't get stolen all at once. It's chipped away, one favor at a time, one signature, one key handed over, because it's just in case. Dad, I didn't see the moment I went from protector to target, but I can tell you the moment it broke. It was the day I found out my own daughter had been impersonating me. For months, and not just with words, with documents, with banks, with the law, but we're not there yet. Let me show you how she made her first move. The first red flag came dressed as a text. June 1st, 10:05 a.m. A message from Elijah, the young tenant I'd carefully chosen to rent my home while I traveled. Hi, Mr. Hail, your daughter's already here with boxes. She said the lease was canceled. I stared at my phone. Canceled? I never canceled anything. I called Elijah immediately. He answered on the first ring. She said you changed your mind, that you're letting her and her husband stay for a while. She seemed pretty confident. I didn't yell. I didn't panic. I thanked him, told him I'd be there within the hour, and grabbed my keys. 5 hours. That's how long it took me to drive back up the coast from Monterey, where I'd docked my boat. Plenty of time to think. Plenty of time to remember every just-in-case request Madison had made that year. Can I borrow the garage code? Can I hold a spare set of keys? You know, in case something happens to you. Mom said you were traveling a lot lately. We just want to make sure the house is okay. Looking back now, every one of those questions was a setup. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun was low and my hands were shaking. But it wasn't until I opened the Ring camera archive that the denial broke. There she was, Madison, smiling, laughing, unlocking the front door like it belonged to her. Luke followed behind her, carrying boxes. They were already moving in. I opened the front door. Madison was sitting on my leather couch, scrolling through her phone like she was picking a movie. Luke was in my kitchen, barefoot, using my espresso machine. She looked up and grinned. Surprise. We figured you wouldn't mind. Mom said you'd be out on the water for a while. You always say we can count on you. My heart didn't race. It sank. Elijah and Isabella are moving in today. I signed a lease with them. They're paying rent. This is not your house. Madison blinked. Oh. Well, I mean, it's not like it's a big deal. You're not living here. We already moved our stuff. Can't you just postpone? No, I said flatly. I can't, and I won't. Luke stepped in. We gave up our apartment. Mr. Hale, that was based on your ex-wife's word. My ex-wife, I repeated, does not own this home. He looked away. I walked into my study. Quiet. Cold. The file drawer was exactly where I'd left it. Or so I thought. I opened it. There, wedged inside a folder labeled Estate, was a notarized document I didn't recognize. I pulled it out slowly. Power of attorney. Dated 2 months ago. Signed Richard Hale. Only problem. I didn't sign it. Not in that handwriting. Not with that address. Not on that date, because I was in Catalina that week. Confirmed by a GPS log on my yacht. The signature looked like a 5th grader imitating cursive, but someone believed it. Because that document, it had been used. I logged into my Fidelity retirement account. $780. Withdrawn across multiple transfers over the past 14 months. Each marked authorized by POA. Madison Hale. It wasn't just the house. It was the money. The trust. The last 14 months of emergency expenses. The cryptic Venmo notes. The sudden upgrades to her lifestyle. It all clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a campaign. Planned. Executed. Covered up. And I'd let it happen, because I still thought I was the father, not the mark. You never see the big betrayal all at once. It arrives in layers, like peeling paint. Only what's underneath is worse. That night, I sat at my desk, the forged power of attorney trembling in my hands. I kept staring at my signature, as if sheer willpower could force it to become real. But it never did. I called my attorney. Greg? He's been with me since my first property closing, and he knows my habits almost better than I do. I texted him a photo of the document and my account screenshot. Greg called back immediately, his voice sharper than usual. Richard, that's not your signature. You need to move fast. This is criminal elder financial abuse, forgery, fraud. Don't wait. His words hit like cold water. Suddenly, everything from the last year snapped into focus. Surface. What happened today? Madison and Luke moving into my house without warning, claiming they had my blessing, acting as if they owned the place. A new power of attorney, signed, notarized, already put to use. Conspiracy. Who else was involved? I played back a voicemail. Madison left my ex-wife, not realizing she'd butt-dialed me at the time. Just tell Dad you're managing things while he's away. Say it's for his own good. He won't fight you. He hates drama. In the background. Luke laughed. My ex chimed in. I'll handle Richard. You just focus on moving in. It wasn't just Madison. It was my ex-wife. Orchestrating the plan. Luke. Using my money for a failed crypto business explains those rushed loan requests. And even the notary. Turns out, he's a friend of my ex's new husband. Timeline. How long it ran. I started piecing it all together. Every odd request, every unexplained withdrawal, every family emergency Madison pleaded for, while her mom backed her up. Going back through my phone, I noticed a pattern. Every holiday, every milestone, Mother's Day, my birthday, even Father's Day, they'd ask for access, money, a favor. That's how they got me to sign a blank document last summer, claiming it was for estate planning. That's how they justified the surprise upgrades in Madison's life, the designer bags, the extended European trip, the new Tesla. The details overwhelmed my senses. The room smelled like old legal pads and ink. My hands shook as I pressed play on a saved voice memo. Don't worry, he won't check. He trusts us. I could hear Madison's voice, then her mom's, then Luke, laughing. I closed my eyes and saw the entire scheme mapped out. Emails, bank alerts I'd dismissed as spam. My ex, always helping, slowly shifting control with each small favor I'd granted. Even Daniel's warnings quiet, almost apologetic, now rang like sirens in my head. In 30 seconds, everything crystallized, every clue. The garage code, the bank logins, the missing checkbooks, the key just in case. It all fit. That was my light bulb moment. The entire time, I thought I was protecting my family, but I'd handed them the blueprint for how to rob me. I wasn't just a father. I was the mark in a long con. But that night, I made a decision. If they wanted to see what I'd learned in 40 years of law and loss, I'd show them. Not with shouting, not with threats, but with evidence, lawyers, and a plan that would make them wish they'd never tested me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't bang on doors or threaten lawsuits. I got quiet, I got deliberate, and I got everything in writing. First, I gathered my evidence, one piece at a time. I printed every bank log, every Venmo payment, every emergency transfer marked with Madison's name. I took screenshots of each withdrawal. Each was a tiny confession in black and white. I scanned the power of attorney. I highlighted the shaky signature and compared it to a legal document I'd signed a month prior. The difference was plain as day. No handwriting expert needed. Next, I checked my security footage. Ring camera. Madison, letting herself in. Luke carrying boxes. Both acting like they'd done nothing wrong. I called Greg, my attorney, and explained it all. He didn't sound surprised. He told me exactly what to do. Don't confront them yet. Freeze every joint account. Change your house locks. Notify your tenants. Make sure everything is documented. So I did. I called my banker and said the words I'd never thought I'd use. I need to report suspected elder financial abuse. I want every joint account, every credit card, every line of access reviewed and frozen effective immediately. Next, I called Elijah and Isabella. Give me 48 hours. I said, I promise you'll be moving in as planned. Then I filed an emergency injunction at the courthouse. I've spent a lifetime navigating the system for others. Now, I was fighting for myself. Every step was silent power. No drama, no shouting, just a calm man in a blue blazer, walking into the bank with a folder full of proof. I called a retired friend at the DOJ. Can you trace logins on a forged power of attorney? He just laughed. Send it over. You'll have your answer tomorrow. Back home, I typed out a formal eviction notice. I signed it with my real signature, crisp and confident. I delivered it myself. When I arrived at my house, Madison tried to play innocent. Dad, can't we just talk about this? Family shouldn't fight. Luke tried to block the door. You're making a mistake. We have nowhere to go. I didn't flinch. This isn't a discussion. I said, you have 72 hours to vacate, or I'll have the sheriff escort you out. The next morning, my phone buzzed confirmation from the bank. All accounts were frozen. No access. No way for Madison to keep spending. Later that day, I received a report from my DOJ friend. All the forged forms, every login, every IP address traced right back to Madison's devices and Luke's work computer. I sent everything to Greg, who filed charges with the state. By the time Madison realized what was happening, it was too late. Her Tesla leased in my name was repossessed. Luke's business credit cards declined at the gas station. The Venmo requests bounced back, stamped, denied. No confrontation, no drama, just a slow, methodical shutdown of every door they'd ever used to take advantage of me. And while all this was unfolding, I reinstated the lease for Elijah and Isabella. They moved in 3 days later, grateful, relieved, and completely unaware of the war that had just been fought behind closed doors. As for Madison and Luke, they didn't call. Not at first, but I knew the silence was temporary. Sooner or later, when entitlement hits a brick wall, someone always comes begging. I just had to be ready for that next move. When the doors finally shut on Madison and Luke, I expected anger, maybe denial. What I got was silence, a kind of stunned quiet, as if neither could believe the world had stopped bending for them. But justice isn't quiet. It moves like a ripple in a pond, touching everything you thought was safe. Within days, the fallout began. The eviction stuck. Madison and Luke were out. They didn't even try to fight it in court. Too much evidence, too little sympathy from the judge. The house was restored to me, spotless, ready for the new tenants. That alone would have satisfied most people. But this wasn't just about a house. It was about boundaries and the price of crossing them. That week, Greg filed an official claim for elder financial abuse under California Penal Code FAR 368. The state took it seriously. An investigator showed up at my door. We sat at the kitchen table, sifting through paperwork, every withdrawal, every forged document, every text message where Madison begged for another favor. It became clear this wasn't some misunderstanding. It was a pattern, a slow, methodical drain of trust and money. Meanwhile, the HOA, after seeing the police at my house and hearing whispers from the building staff, took action too. They put out a notice to the entire community. Be advised, unauthorized use of access codes and property keys will result in legal action. For reference, see recent events at the Hale residence. It didn't take long for word to spread. Neighbors who'd once smiled politely now shook their heads, whispering about Madison's betrayal. She couldn't get through a grocery line without someone glancing at her, then looking away. The consequences followed Madison and Luke like a shadow. Her accounts frozen, her car gone. Luke's business partners pulled out, unwilling to touch anything connected to a fraud claim. Even her job search became a minefield. I didn't publicize what happened, but Madison's own digital trail did the work for me. Every time she applied for a job, someone found the LinkedIn post. I wrote the week after the eviction. Reminder, even judges get scammed sometimes by those closest to them. Trust is earned, not inherited. It went viral in our community. It made the rounds in legal circles, elder advocacy forums, even a local news blog. Madison called, her voice shaky. "Dad, can't we just talk? I'm sorry. You made your point. Can't we start over?" I listened. Calm. "Madison, this isn't a punishment. It's a consequence. Actions have weight." She cried. Luke tried to argue. My ex-wife left voicemails, some angry, some pleading. I didn't block their numbers. I just didn't answer. I wasn't cold. I was resigned. A week later, I got a letter from the DA's office. Charges had been filed. Forgery, wire fraud, elder abuse. The system that had once seemed distant was suddenly moving on my behalf. The last thing to fall was Madison's pride. A neighbor sent me a photo. Madison, in a server's uniform, clearing dishes at a yacht club down the coast. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd spent years bragging about her lifestyle. Now, she was working for tips. Daniel, my son, stopped by one evening with takeout. He didn't say much, just handed me a bottle of wine and looked around the quiet house. "I'm sorry it came to this. Dad," he said. "I'm not," I replied. "I wish it hadn't, but I'm not sorry for drawing the line." Daniel nodded. For the first time, I could see he believed it. That was when I realized justice isn't about revenge. It's about restoration, about making things right, even when right hurts. And for the first time in a long while, I felt peace settling in, a peace earned, not given. 6 months later, my house feels different. It's not just that Madison and Luke are gone. It's the stillness, the way quiet can settle in after a storm, like fresh air after a hard rain. There's a kind of relief in the routine now. No more locked drawers, no more anxious glances at bank statements, no more just-in-case favors whispered over the phone. I spend more time outside these days. Sometimes Daniel joins me. He's not the type for long talks, but we sit out back, grilling steaks, listening to the ocean, watching the world go on. Sometimes he brings a friend from work, or Elijah and Isabella will stop by, bringing a bottle of wine and stories about their research. There's laughter, warmth, a sense of community I'd forgotten I missed. It took a while to realize that family isn't always blood. Sometimes, the people who respect your boundaries are the ones you choose to keep close. Madison's name doesn't come up much. She texts, sometimes short, awkward updates, questions about paperwork, or requests for advice she never used to ask for. I don't always answer right away, but when I do, I keep it clear and kind. No more blank checks, No more just this once. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. For everyone. One afternoon, I found an old key tucked in the back of my desk drawer, the last just-in-case spare. I melted it down, turned it into a paperweight, and had it engraved, "Earn it or lose it." It sits on my desk now, next to the eviction notice and Daniel's framed article about my first court ruling. Reminders of what I built and what I almost lost. The fallout from Madison's actions changed more than just her circumstances. My ex-wife and I don't talk much these days, and I'm at peace with that. Daniel and I are closer, though we'll never be the kind of father and son who say everything out loud. But he comes by more often. He asks questions now, not just about finances, but about life. He sees me, really sees me for the first time in years. Elijah and Isabella have become more than tenants. They're friends. We help each other out. They keep an eye on the place when I travel. I share what I've learned about boundaries and trust. They remind me to laugh at myself, to let go when the moment calls for it. I used to think standing up for myself would break the family I worked so hard to build. But the truth is, it gave me something stronger. A circle of people who respect me, not just for what I can give, but for who I am. If you've ever found yourself questioning whether you're allowed to say enough, I hope my story gives you permission. Sometimes, love means drawing a line and holding it, even if it hurts. Sometimes, justice is quiet, no courtroom drama, no big speech, just the gentle certainty that you did what you had to do. So, let me ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have pressed charges? Would you have drawn the line, even against your own? Tell me in the comments. Your stories matter here. And if you've found any wisdom, or even just a little courage, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. There's always another story to tell, another lesson to learn, another moment when someone needs to hear that boundaries are not just allowed, they're essential. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself and of the people who earn their place at your table.